Hey, Tommy and Eddie here to talk to you about something really great. Palm Sunday.
Yeah, that's the Sunday that we paint our palms purple to commemorate King Saul talking to that palm reader lady, and then we wave him in the air.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
No.
What Bible do you read?
Palm Sunday commemorates the triumphal entry of Jesus into Jerusalem. Now picture this. Jesus rode in on a donkey while the crowds put their cloaks and palm branches all over the ground, shouting, "Hosanna to the Son of David."
That's what I said. That's what I meant.
Okay, now picture this. Jesus' popularity was going viral. I mean, he just raised Lazarus from the dead in the same community just a few days earlier.
Wait, post-dead Lazarus was maybe at the very first Palm Sunday?
Yeah, probably.
That's so cool. I bet if he was there, he was probably like, "And you're a thriller, thriller, Jesus. You raised me from the dead when you said, get up, get up, get up, ooh!"
Now, to complete all of this, Jesus needed a donkey. Now, you'd think that a king or a prince would ride in on a horse, but not Jesus. He knew the message that he wanted to send. You see, a donkey represents peace. Anybody riding a donkey represented peaceful intentions.
Yeah, it says right here in Matthew 21, it says that Jesus sent 2 of his disciples to get him a donkey.
Yeah.
Hey, I wonder which 2 he sent.
Maybe Thomas.
I doubt it. I bet he sent Andrew. Andrew would totally do that. And probably Tony. I bet he said Andrew and Tony.
Tony's not a disciple.
Oh, sorry. Tony is.
Still not a disciple.
What translation of the Bible do you read?
Jesus needed a donkey, so he asked 2 disciples to go get him a donkey. He told them they would find one in town, tied there next to a colt.
Yeah. And then he says, untie them and bring them to me. And if somebody asks you about it, you tell them the Lord needs them? Jeez.
Yeah, what?
Well, Jesus has told his disciples to go steal a donkey for him.
What Bible do you read? It doesn't say that at all.
I can't figure this out. I mean, Jesus, he changed water into wine. Cool. He fed the 4,000.
He fed the 5,000.
What?
He fed the 5,000.
It doesn't matter.
It does matter. Not the 4th. It's the 5,000.
We're splitting hairs. I'm sorry. Jesus fed a large group of people, and that's cool. He healed people with leprosy. He raises Lazarus from the dead, and then boom, he's like, "Hey guys, go steal me a donkey." I'm just saying, I don't think that's very WWJD.
The significance of Jesus riding on a donkey, which he did not steal, was to fulfill the prophecy that is found in Zechariah 9:9.
Yeah, but
And the king riding in on a lowly donkey with his way paved with palm branches. The palm branches symbolize triumph or victory.
The what?
The palm branches.
The branch.
Palm branches, Palm Sunday.
I thought it was the palm. They should call it Branch Sunday, because that's confusing. We all have palms with us all the time. I feel bad. I'm sorry, Palm Sunday.
Palm Sunday is a time for us to prepare our hearts for the agony of his passion and the joy of his resurrection. So this week, let's cover the road to the cross with our hearts, our souls, and our minds as we reflect on the final week of Jesus' life.
And let's celebrate in anticipation the return of the King of Kings.
Ha! Love it. Hey, sorry about the audio quality there on that video. We're still working on a few kinks. I hope you've appreciated some of the upgrades we've done this week. Those were again some of the things that had been planned a long time ago, and finally able to do some of those this week. It's kind of fun, but. All right, so, growing up in Minnesota and then living in the Kansas City area for several years, I remember when the news forecasts and reports were that bad weather was coming. Sometimes, it could turn into a really bad thunderstorm, it could turn into a hailstorm, hopefully not, but sometimes turn into a tornado. And I remember sometimes looking up at the sky in those moments and seeing that just the sky was literally green. Like an eerie green with dark gray clouds rolling into the green, and you just kind of got this eerie feeling, and it became really quiet, kind of the mythical kind of calm before the storm, and it would feel really weird. And a couple weeks ago, as things are changing, we're hearing about this virus, and there's restrictions, and it's going to spread, and it really could turn into a national crisis, and we need to really get serious and do something about it. And walk down the street and see somebody, and they would take and really clear their distance, walk on the other side. And we'd go to the stores, and before there was like X's on the ground for where you could stand to keep distance. Everybody was kind of weird and not looking at each other, and kids would be playing at the playground, and social media would light up with a bunch of anger and vitriol and hatred of why people are spending time together. And it was just, I remember just kind of thinking that I wanted to look up and expected a green sky with dark, ominous clouds. It was the feeling like something's just not right around here. And we're all kind of looking at each other with suspicion and anger and hatred. And well, I was talking to one of our church members this week and said, I remember back in September 11th, 2001, and there was this sense of like a coming together. There was a sense of like, let's come together. There's strength in numbers. Let's come together, pray, seek the Lord together. And well, maybe it was because the enemy was out there, and we came together because the enemy was out there. But now it's different, right? It feels weird. It's like the enemy's hidden. The enemy's all around us. Like you might be a carrier. You might get me sick. Like everybody around me is the enemy, and we're walking around with like fear and suspicion and looking at each other, and it was weird, kind of scary. And luckily some of that has subsided and it's calmed down a little bit. But I want to kind of play off that one today a little bit, take a thought off that one. Like, what if we are all contagious? I mean, heard the news story this week, right? That we need to treat each other we need to act as if the virus is everywhere. But how about in a good sense, like that we are contagious? What if we did see ourselves as carriers? Like we are carriers, and as someone asked the question recently, if we are all carriers, is what you're carrying worth catching? We're carriers, and as followers of Jesus, we are carriers of hope, or we're supposed to be. And what we see right now is our world and the people around us need a great dosage of hope. Our world needs an infection of hope. And as followers of Jesus, we are carriers of hope. And I want to encourage us today to do our job as carriers of hope and to be contagious and to spread hope around us. I'm going to be honest with you. This is kind of not a ton of original material. There's a kind of well-known pastor out in Oklahoma, and somebody shared me his podcast. I listened to it, was completely inspired with it. Began to think and pray that this is a message our church needed to hear. Listened to it again and became convinced we need to hear this message. And what do you know? It connects directly with what we read in the Gospel of John about Palm Sunday today. It tells us this in chapter 12, verse 12. The next day, the great crowd that had come for the festival, they heard that Jesus was on his way to Jerusalem. And so what did they do? They took palm branches and they went out to meet him, shouting, "Hosanna! Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Blessed is the King of Israel." Jesus found a young donkey. He sat on it, as it is written, quoting the prophet Zechariah here. "Do not be afraid, daughter Zion. See, your king is coming, seated on a donkey's colt." And then John tells us this. Now at first his disciples did not understand all this. Only after Jesus was glorified did they realize that these things had been written about him and that these things had been done to him. Here we have Jewish men and women who are living under oppression, living with a virus that they called the Roman Empire that kept them from ruling themselves, that kept them from living out their faith as they wanted under self-rule, and they hated the Romans and viewed it as the virus that needed to be eradicated among them. And they knew that there was an ancient prophecy given through one of God's prophets several hundred years before that prophesied about a king coming to save them. In fact, there were a lot of prophecies in the Old Testament through God's prophets in which he said God is going to do something. God is going to send a king, a savior. And so when they began to hear news and some of the rumors about this godly man, this teacher, this one who could heal and had the power of God, and he was a rabbi who really cared about people, especially those marginalized and forgotten about by the rest of society, a godly man who practiced what he preached, they really latched onto this Jesus. And people began to ask the question, could he be our coming king? Could he be the one who's going to save us from this virus of the Roman Empire and free us from the oppression that we are feeling? And then we read, at least in the Gospel of John, that his last miracle leading up to this day was the biggest and the best one yet, when he hears that his friend Lazarus is sick and then he dies. and Jesus intentionally waits a couple of days. He gets into town, and by the time he gets into town where his friend Lazarus had lived, he had been already in the grave for several days, and Jesus comes into town. And people say, yeah, Jesus, if you had only been here a couple of days ago, you could have helped him when he was sick, but now that he's dead and gone, we just don't think you can do anything. And Jesus walks up and he says, move the stone away from the grave. And then he calls out in a loud voice, Lazarus, come out here. And Lazarus comes out of the grave and he says, take the grave clothes off of him. And Lazarus is back. He's alive. He's well. He has been completely healed by Jesus. And at that point, you can imagine what the news spreads. And there is excitement about this man named Jesus. A little while later, he's back into town in Jerusalem for a festival. And there are huge crowds of people everywhere. And they've come from all of the surrounding villages, maybe even places that have only marginally, little bit, heard the rumors of this guy, Jesus. And they come, and the great crowd, they heard about Jesus. They hear that he is on his way to Jerusalem. He is headed into the capital city, and they make the most of this effort. This time, they run out, they cut down palm branches, they begin to sing Hosanna. What we see here is this is a story of hope. This is a story of hope. This is a story of the celebration of hope, and this is a story of the spreading of hope. They sing, Hosanna, Hosanna, which when translated means save us, save us. It can be understood maybe as a request, like please save us, or as a declaration, we believe you are going to save us. Either way, it is a word of hope when you're going to someone who you firmly believe has the power and the ability and the desire to save you from what oppresses you. It is a word of hope. They begin to sing and to celebrate and to kind of quote an Old Testament psalm, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. They look back and they see that what God wrote so long ago, he's continuing to do. There's a fulfillment of prophecy by a God who is doing good things, leading us into a good future. Blessed is the King of Israel. And what's interesting is Jesus doesn't stop them. There are previous stories in Scripture where things people get excited and the word spreads. I mean, maybe you remember the story when Jesus feeds like thousands of people, and after that they realized the miracle, and it said they tried to make him king by force, as if they could force Jesus to become their king. And he's like, no, it's not yet time for this, and he sends everybody away. But this time, he lets it happen, because it's time. And he rides into Jerusalem, and he is going to be king. Look at verse 17. Now, the crowd that was with him when he called Lazarus from the tomb and raised him from the dead continued to spread the word. Well, yeah. Because when you see Jesus raise somebody from the dead, you were there when they buried him, and you were there when he comes out of the tomb several days later. Yes, you're going to spread the word. Undoubtedly, they remembered what Jesus said. What he said to Martha, and she said, "Oh, I know he's going to live again in the future, in the resurrection. You know, eternal life a long ways out." And Jesus says, "No, stop, Martha." Jesus, John chapter 11, verse 25 and 26, he says this: "I am the resurrection. I am the life." The resurrection is not about a future event. The resurrection is about a person and who is able to raise those who are from the dead. I am the resurrection and the dead. And the person who believes in me will live even though they die. Let's go to the next slide there. Yeah. And whoever lives by believing in me will never die. He says, I am the resurrection. What do we see here? The people who saw Lazarus also saw Jesus. And when they saw what Jesus did, they experienced hope, and they spread the hope. Why? Because hope is contagious. Jesus is contagious. Whatever you get from Jesus, you want to share with the people around you. Whatever you get from Jesus, you give to the others around you. And when you follow Jesus, you get hope. And when you keep following Jesus, you keep getting more hope. And when you follow Jesus, you get hope, and you want to spread the hope and the good news to the people around you. And look what happened, verse 18. Many people, because they had heard that he performed this sign, they went out to meet him. And now more people are out finding more hope in Jesus, and it is spreading. Jesus says, I bring hope because I am hope. And when you follow me, you get hope. You keep following me, and you share hope. Heard the story this week. One of our members, he's a healthcare professional, and he went to work this week, and working at the hospital, underneath his scrubs, he wore his Serve Contagiously shirt. Think about that a little minute, Think about that when you take that absolutely literally, which is not how we meant to take it. But this is what we believe, that we believe that hope is contagious. And we believe that those of us who have received hope from Jesus, we put on our scrubs, we put on our work clothes, we put on whatever clothing, uniform is required, and we go. We could even put ourselves in some dangerous situations when it's a little bit risky because we believe that Jesus has a message of hope and we spread hope. Heard the story about Yukio Shige. He lives in Japan. He's a retired detective. And knowing and hearing the stories of the high suicide rate in Japan, Shige wanted to do something about it. He lives near the cliffs near the Sea of Japan, and knowing that that's a popular spot for folks to jump from the cliffs and end their life, every day since 2004, he roams the cliffs looking for people who are considering a suicide attempt. If he spots someone in need, when he spots someone in need, he slowly approaches them, offers them a gentle hello. He does his best to engage them in some conversation. He moves a little bit closer, and then at some point offers a light touch on their shoulder, at which point almost every time causes the person to burst into tears, and then he'll just softly whisper to them, "You've had a hard time up until now, haven't you?" He engages them in conversation. The beauty of his work, though, is it doesn't just stop there on the cliffs. He tries to get them to come back to his rented office that he pays for, where he brings the person back for some counseling sessions. Time magazine did an article on his work, and the author noted that back in his office, in the counseling sessions, there's no rush. It's quiet. It's calm. And when they're back there, that he'll offer them mochi, a dish of pounded sticky rice mixed with relish. It's kind of a traditional Japanese dish. Traditionally, the dish is served to celebrate the new year. And traditionally, families will take their rice that they have prepared and combine it with those of their neighbors and celebrate. And he says, when people come here and eat the mochi, they remember their childhood, father, mother, siblings, hometown, and they remember that they're not alone. Because of Shige's work, over 600 Japanese men and women have chosen life over death. He brings hope, and he spreads hope. Towards the end of the article, the author points out, even rather nonchalantly, that his ringtone on his cell phone is set to Amazing Grace. Shige sums up his life mission like this. He says, "I want these cliffs to be the most challenging place, not where life ends, but where it begins." Think about that. I mean, here we have a great example of someone who's living his full potential, right? If there ever was, here's someone in retirement, saving lives, spreading hope. I had a thought this week. This could be the memory for our kids' generation. When you talk to folks of different generations, maybe my grandparents or great-grandparents' generation, they could clearly describe their memories of the Great Depression. And that time of their life was so shaped their lives in a good way, but also in some not so good ways and they just clearly remember that and shape the rest of their lives. Another generation can clearly remember the news of the attack on Pearl Harbor. My dad, many in his generation, can remember where they were when they heard the news that the President of the United States, JFK, had been assassinated. We would just have these memories that are etched in our minds, and you know what? How many of our generation, we can remember where we were when we heard the news that 2 planes had been maliciously flown into the World Trade Center buildings, 9/11. We just remember. Those are the events that change a generation, and this could be the event that changes our kids' generation. And if it is, how are they going to look back and remember this time? Yeah, they're probably going to look back and remember and say, "Yeah, remember that time? We had no school for like 2 months and it was awesome." They're probably going to remember that. But hopefully they're going to look back and say it's awesome. I mean, unfortunately, we know the reality. The harsh reality is that for some kids, school is their only sense of care, consistency, normalcy, the only place they get regularly fed good, healthy, nutritious meals. There's quite a few folks who are going to look back at this and say that time when school was canceled for a couple of months was one of the worst times in my life of instability and fear and anxiety. I hope our kids look back and say, I remember that time and it was good. What it would be like if our kids would look back and say, those months, they were the best memories of time with our family when we spent time together. We spent time watching movies together. We played games together. We did table tennis on our dining room table with toilet paper rolls as the net, and it was fun and it was crazy and it was weird, and we remember it and it was good. You know what I'd love to hear? You know, it'd be great if somebody said, I don't know if I'd love to hear it, but it's this reality we're going to be in anyways. What if somebody looks back and says, I remember that time and it was hard. My mom got laid off from her job and it was really hard. But I remember that my mom had a faith in Jesus and she pulled our family together and we prayed together. We all supported together. We came together and we made a plan and we survived in prayer together. There was hope and my mom led with hope. Wouldn't it be great if someone looked back and said, I remember that time and it was hard, but it was the time that my dad really started to trust God for the first time. Oh, he always believed in God and he even brought us to church regularly. But that time I remember something changed in my dad and he started to trust God like he had never trusted God before. And he was a changed man, a different man. And when I saw the difference that Jesus made in his life and how he lived his life in that most difficult time, I decided I am following Jesus for the rest of my life because the difference he made in my dad. This could be the time that cements the faith of a future generation with hope that God is real, he cares about us, and that he is a God of hope. I hope that our kids look back and they remember that this was the time we gave to our neighbors. I hope that they remember that we did not hoard our stuff, but we helped, that we did not gather, but we gave. What are our kids going to remember from this time? I want to encourage you today. If they're going to look back and remember that it was a time of goodness, a time of hope that was hard, but it was filled with hope, then you and I, especially you and I, mom and dad, we've got to lead, and we've got to lead boldly with a lot of hope. We've got to take up the responsibility to be carriers of hope. Here's what hope does to us. When you have hope, you are confident. We are carriers of confidence. Hebrews chapter 11 says, now faith is the confidence in what we hope for. Faith is the assurance of what we do not see. You put your trust in Jesus, you have a bold faith that things are going to turn out well because you have faith in a powerful God who can take care of us, and we can live with confidence. We can even live with confidence through difficult times. Romans chapter 5 tells us we glory in our sufferings. Because we know that suffering produces perseverance, perseverance produces character, character produces hope, that I don't have to live in fear during this time. In fact, I can actually celebrate this hard time because I know that God's got this and he's going to take this hard time and work in me, and he's going to build my character. He's going to build a sense of perseverance, and I'm going to come out of this stronger and more like him with a more godly life because of what God is going to do. We can be confident, and you and I, followers of Jesus, we've got to live right now with confidence. We cannot walk around with our heads hung low. We cannot walk around with fear plastered all over our face. It is time for us to claim that we believe in Jesus, we have faith in Jesus, and he's going to get us through this, and we need to lead. We need to be cultural leaders with confidence right now because we have a basis for our confidence. We are carriers of praise and of worship. Psalm 119 says, you are my refuge. You are my shield. I have put my hope in your word, O Lord. Isaiah 40, I love this. Those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint. When we praise and we worship just like we already did, I hope you're already feeling better. In fact, maybe what some of you need to do this week is before you watch the news, you go to YouTube and you just take an hour of praise and worship music. Hey, the great thing about YouTube is, whatever is your favorite style of worship, favorite style of music, you can find some worship music in that style, so that makes it even easier. If you love Southern gospel and you want more of the Gaithers, like we just sang a little bit, you can get hours and hours of Gaithers leading you in worship. And if that's your thing, you should do that and then watch the news. Fill yourself up with hope and then go to reality. We are carriers of praise and worship, and we are carriers of the good news. 1 Peter tells us this, in moments when it's difficult, in moments when people are looking down on you, in your hearts, revere Christ as Lord. He says, always be prepared to give an answer to everyone who asks you to give the reason for the hope you have, but do it with gentleness
and respect. Be ready to give an answer. When people look at you and say, how are you so confident in this time of fear? How are you so bold? How do you have hope? Let's be ready to share an answer. I've been so encouraged this week to see folks posting and sharing Bible verses, sharing good stuff, sharing moments of inspiration, moments of good news as we spread the good news of Jesus even in this difficult time. We do it with gentleness. We do it with respect. Let's be ready to share the hope that we have in Jesus Christ. Someone shared a prayer request just a little bit earlier in the comments section as we began to worship. For loved ones whose hearts are hard, hearts are softened by honest, authentic, real-life, genuine stories of how God has touched our lives. Let's be ready to share our stories of hope. We are carriers of a message, and that is a good news message that encourages people. So here's an action point. Who can you encourage today? Who can you encourage this week? This week, here's your action call. I want you to pick up the phone and call somebody. How do I know if they need encouragement? Everybody needs encouragement these days. In fact, what if we just believe that every time God put somebody on our hearts and minds, we thought of somebody and we thought, why did I just think of them right now? What if we just believed that that was the Holy Spirit and then our job in those moments was to pick up the phone and call somebody? I know we don't like to call people and talk on the phone. It's weird. It's old-fashioned. We just like to get business done and send them a quick text message. Okay, you could do that. Or you can just be bold, because in these days when we can't see each other, how good it is to hear the voice of somebody who loves us and cares for us. It is time to pick up the phone and discover how to have a good old-fashioned phone call. Mom and Dad, it is time for you to teach your kids how to have a good old-fashioned phone call. Dial a number, hit send, call the people we love, and connect. Last week, I got a phone call from a friend I'd known for a long time. Couldn't take the call right then, left a voicemail, and it was a couple of days before I could get back to it. And when I got back to it, it was a voicemail of pure encouragement. He said, hey, my friend, I'm just thinking about you. I know that you pastors must be going through a lot right now with a lot of big decisions. I want you to know I believe in you. I believe what God is doing in you, what God's doing through you. Can I just tell you how that built me up, how that encouraged me, how it gave me fuel for the day to say someone knows me, someone was thinking about me, someone believes in me and what God is doing in me. It was so encouraging. And if that's what it did for me, is that what is happening when God puts someone on my heart and mind and I give them a phone call? Well, here's what I want us to do. Here's how we're going to close the service. In a little bit, we're going to sing again. But I want us to share with each other and bring words of encouragement to each other. So here's what I want you to do. How has someone encouraged you this week? Maybe you got a piece of mail, card of encouragement. Somebody stopped by even though they weren't supposed to. Okay, maybe we shouldn't share that one. I don't get in trouble for that. I don't know. Hey, how has somebody encouraged you this week by what they did, even if it was a small act that they thought was small, but it was big to you? Here's what I want you to do. Think about that. Share it in the comments section. Whether you're watching on YouTube or watching on Facebook, share it in the comments section. We're going to take a look at those. And in the last song, we're going to share those together and we're going to celebrate, because we need to inspire each other with how to encourage each other and just how meaningful it is when we encourage each other. So if this last week, if you have been encouraged by someone else's actions, words, or something, share that in the comments section right now, and we're all going to celebrate it, because we believe that fear is contagious. That's obvious. But you know what? Faith is more contagious than fear. We know that bad news is contagious. That's obvious. We're feeling it already. But we believe that good news is even more contagious. And I believe that you and I, followers of Jesus, we are carriers. We are carriers of hope. So let's be contagious and spread some hope. How are we doing that practically? Let me encourage you some things that are happening around the church here about how we are actively spreading hope. I already shared with you that we are giving away food. We're meeting basic needs as people respond to the question of how can we help. So here's one story this week. It's a story of a family who contacted us, and they told us about how everybody, including the babies in their home, everybody was ill. Nobody was able to leave the house, and they were desperate. They said, can you help us? They needed food They also needed a couple other specific items for the babies in their house. We looked through what we had, the food that you have donated and the stuff that you have donated, and recognized that we were able to meet all of her requests, including baby wipes, including some Clorox. They were sick. We dropped it off. You can see the picture there. Someone from our Compassion 360 team dropped it off, put it inside the gates, blessed them, called them, prayed for them. We're able to encourage someone and spread some hope. Like we shared with you, kids, where maybe home isn't all that consistent. And some of the only consistent meals they get is through school, and so schools have been working hard to provide meals. This last week was spring break. Meals were provided, and then Compassion 360, we took up the opportunity on the weekend before, last weekend and this weekend, Saturday and Sunday, to hand out sack lunches prepared so that kids could continue to be fed. Last week we gave out anywhere between 85 to 100. Yesterday and today we're going to continue to give out 85 to 100 meals each day. Someone else called and said she was real sick. She thought she was running a fever, but unable to take her temperature. Didn't know if she was struggling with the virus or not. She needed a thermometer, but couldn't get out to go get one and couldn't go to the store. One of our wonderful Compassion team members, Wendy, on her birthday went to the pharmacy, luckily found a thermometer for sale, bought it, dropped it off, delivered it to her. You know, we're discovering this is contagious. When people hear that you're working to spread hope, that they want to be a part of it. Amber and Jordan, they were shopping this last week, shopping at Fred Meyer, buying food to fill our food boxes, buying some specific items to complement what you have already donated to fill up the food boxes that we give away when people contact us. Well, as they're shopping, another shopper overheard their conversation and what they were doing, gave them a $100 gift card to help out with what we're doing to help meet needs. You can see the cart here, filled up the cart. The total when they got up to the cash register was $105, paid with the gift card, only $5 more. That food has been shared, given away to people who need it. Hope is contagious, and when you're already spreading hope, people want to be a part of spreading hope. We spread hope, and so we set up the Defeat the Distance hotline. So anyone who's lonely or discouraged can have someone to talk to. If you need to be a part of that today, if you know someone who needs to talk, needs to just get in contact with someone, share it, because we believe in spreading hope, because we are contagious. We spread hope. And it's not just emotional, and it's not just feel-good stuff. We spread hope because Jesus is able. We spread hope because Jesus, the serving king who rode in on a donkey, he is the Son of God, who has the power to bring hope and change lives. Does that mean it's easy? No. The reality is, on that Palm Sunday, many of the people in the crowd who were singing, "Hosanna, blessed is the King who comes in the name of the Lord," later in the week, Thursday or Friday, they're shouting, "Crucify him." Why? Because Jesus didn't turn out to be the kind of king they wanted him to be. He didn't bring the solution they wanted. He didn't do what they wanted him to do. They thought the virus was the Roman government, and that Jesus, if he was a king worthy of worship, would surely overthrow Roman rule and set up Jewish self-rule, and Jesus didn't do that. Jesus let himself be killed by that Roman government. Because Jesus knew that the real enemy, the real virus, is in here. That desire for self-rule is actually the real virus that got us in trouble a long time ago and keeps us in trouble. That desire for self-rule always leads to a dead end. In fact, the reason we struggle with hope is because we walk dead-end roads that are guided by our desire to self-rule and do our own thing. And Jesus says, I'll give you hope, but the way to get hope is a road towards light and life, but it's my road. And if you'll turn your life over to me, give your life to me, I'll lead you on a path of hope. If you'll turn your life over to me. And if you will let Jesus into your life, let Jesus lead your light, he'll bring his goodness, he'll bring his light, and he'll fill your life with hope. And it's our job to spread it. We've experienced that hope. Now let's share the hope and spread the hope. So next Sunday is Easter. Easter, again, is going to be like no other Easter we have experienced, in which we will not gather publicly. In this Easter experience, you may not even have the big Easter dinner like you would with your family gathering. In fact, you may have to do like another family did and have your iPad at the end of the table and have to FaceTime Grandma and Grandpa in their Easter dinner and join them all together, maybe at both ends of the table, so it feels like Easter dinner. I don't know what's going to look like, but Easter is going to be different. But you know what? We are going to celebrate, and we're going to celebrate loud and proud that Jesus rose from the dead. So here's what we're doing next weekend, and I'm going to invite you to be a part of this. The question we have been asking is, how can we leverage technology to reach out to our friends with the hope of Easter? And so here's what we're going to do, and I'm going to invite you to be a part of it. You might have seen on Facebook your friends hosting watch parties. And here's what a watch party is. With any video on Facebook, you can invite your circle of friends to come and watch it at the same time with you and comment and interact together. And some of our folks on Sunday mornings, in fact right now, are hosting their own watch parties. And what's cool about the watch party is that in the comments section, you can see the comments of your friends. And it kind of, I mean, it's not private because anybody else can join your watch party, but anybody can be, the folks you invite to be a part of your watch party can be there, and you can discuss and hang out together and pray together and encourage each other. And so, here's what I'm going to invite you to do. Next Sunday, I want to invite you to host your very own Easter watch party. And you've got some folks in your life who need a message of hope. And next week, Easter is going to be a simple message of the hope that Jesus brings to our own lives. We're going to talk about how hope does not disappoint when we have hope in Jesus. And so here's what I'm going to encourage you to do today. I'm going to invite you to host your very own Facebook Easter watch party. We'll tell you how to do it. Wednesday, we're going to have a training time. We're going to lead a webinar that'll lead you how to do it and how to navigate the technology. It really is pretty easy, but we want you to feel really comfortable with it. And then throughout the rest of the week, you start inviting family and friends, people who know Jesus or don't know Jesus. Maybe they know Jesus, but they're not connected with a church, to join the watch party. You could do it live and just experience it. You could do it later in the afternoon with the Sunday service that's already been taped. And later, you can do it anytime you want, however you want. But I'm going to encourage you to invite your friends to a Easter watch party. We'll help you out. We'll send you the information about the webinar and how to be a part of it. But let's see what God can do as we do our job to spread hope this Easter. So here's what I want you to do. Worship team's going to come on back. As they're coming back, here's your question. Here's your challenge for the day. I want you to comment or send us a text message and let us know if you are interested and willing to do a watch party. Here's what you have to do. In the comments section, whether on YouTube or Facebook, just put the word watch party or I'll do a watch party. Or you can text us at that number that we use for our Defeat the Distance. There it is on the screen, 818-4671. Send a quick text message there and just say, watch party. We'll invite you to the webinar on Wednesday, and let's see what God does in your life and in the lives of your friends as we work to spread hope this Easter. We are carriers. But is what you're carrying worth catching? And I believe if you and I, Jesus followers, we're carrying hope in Jesus, it is worth catching, and our world needs an infection of hope right now. And you and I, we are set up to spread it. Let's spread hope.